Real discipline is not a habit. It is an act of silent violence against everything that keeps you weak. You do not become dangerous when you feel motivated. You become dangerous when your feelings lose the authority to stop you. You become dangerous when fatigue can slow your body but cannot renegotiate your standards. The people who dismiss you are not watching your intentions. They are watching for the moment you break. The co-worker who steals credit expects you to lose focus. The relative who mocks your ambition expects you to return to your old habits. The friend who benefits from your disorder expects one bad week to erase every promise you made to yourself. That is why real discipline unsettles people. It removes the version of you they learned to control. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He watched republics collapse, princes lose states, and ambitious men destroy themselves by preferring ease to preparation. In 1513, after the Medici removed him from office, imprisoned him, and tortured him, he withdrew to a farm outside Florence. His public power was gone, his routine was not. In a letter to Francesco Vettori, Machiavelli described rising with the sun, working on the property, reading during the day, and entering his study at night to meet the ancient world through books. That disciplined period produced the foundation of the prince and the discourses. His enemies controlled his position, not what he built after losing it. Today, you will discover 8 laws of discipline that make you difficult to distract, difficult to provoke, and impossible to quietly return to weakness. These laws are not about threatening anyone. They are about becoming so governed from within that manipulation stops working from the outside. Once you understand this, you cannot go back to calling discipline a mood. You will see it for what it is: a private government, an internal army, and a daily refusal to be ruled by the weakest voice in your own mind. If you want comfort, keep negotiating. If you want sovereignty, make the decision before the emotion arrives. Before we begin, drop this in the comments. I do not negotiate with weakness. Number 1, make your word final. The first law is simple. Stop treating every decision as a debate that must be reopened each morning. A standard that depends on your mood is not a standard. It is a suggestion. Machiavelli once wrote in Substance that a ruler becomes contemptible when he appears fickle and irresolute, and that his judgments must carry the weight of finality. He was writing about political authority, but the same mechanism operates inside a human life. When your own commands are constantly reversed, even your mind stops respecting them. Machiavelli's life after 1513 is the proof. Dismissed from government, suspected of conspiracy, imprisoned and tortured, he could no longer command missions or shape policy. Yet he built a repeatable evening ritual: leave the noise, change clothes, enter the study, read the ancients. Humiliation became work, and that work survived the regime that pushed him aside. Most people decide what they want and then ask themselves every day whether they still feel like paying for it. The strategic person decides what the action means, attaches it to a time and place, and removes the daily vote. Psychologists call one version of this an implementation intention, an if-then plan connecting a cue to a response. Instead of, I will work on my project, decide, at 6:30 p.m., after I clear the table, I work for 45 minutes. A major review by Peter Gollwitzer and Paschal Sheeran found that such plans help translate intentions into action. The cue reduces decisions in the heat of the moment. Pre-commitment works for the same reason. In a 2002 study, Dan Ariely and Klaus Wertenbrock found that students imposed costly deadlines on themselves to fight procrastination. Their deadlines were imperfect, and externally spaced deadlines performed better in that setting. The lesson is that disciplined people deliberately restrict the future self most likely to surrender. Imagine that you promise to train before work. At 5:45 a.m., your mind says, "You slept badly. Start tomorrow." The weak response is to argue for 10 minutes and hope inspiration wins. The strategic response was written the night before. Alarm across the room, clothes prepared, first exercise selected, phone left, outside the bedroom. Your answer becomes, "The decision was made yesterday. This morning is execution." Then move. No speech, no drama, no second hearing. This is not about becoming rigid in the face of new evidence. A sovereign person can change a plan when reality changes. This is about refusing to call discomfort new evidence. When your word becomes final, other people notice something before you do. They stop expecting your promises to expire. That is the first form of fear, the collapse of their certainty that you will eventually abandon yourself. Number 2, build a machine, not a mood. Intensity can start a transformation. Only a system can survive it. Machiavelli warned that a capable ruler should never, in peaceful times, stand idle. His point was strategic preparation, resources built before adversity become available when fortune turns violent. Discipline follows the same law. You do not build your system during the crisis. You reveal the system you built before it. Benjamin Franklin tried to make character measurable. In his autobiography, he described 13 virtues, a small tracking book, weekly focus, and allotted times for parts of the day. He also admitted that order caused him trouble. The system did not create perfection. It made failure visible, specific, and correctable. Most people use shame as their tracking system. They fail, feel disgusted, promise a dramatic restart, and repeat the same conditions. The strategic person collects evidence. What time did the failure occur? What cue came before it? What friction made the right action harder? What reward kept the wrong action alive? Habit research supports this mechanical view. In a study led by Philippa Lally, volunteers repeated a chosen behavior in a consistent context for 12 weeks. Automaticity increased gradually, and the modeled time varied widely across people and behaviors. Discipline does not become effortless after a magical number of days. Repetition slowly makes the cue pull the behavior with less negotiation. Your system needs 4 parts: a cue, a minimum action, a visible record, and a recovery rule. The cue tells you when to begin. The minimum action keeps the chain alive on difficult days. The record prevents your memory from rewriting the week. The recovery rule tells you what happens after failure. Suppose you are building a business after your regular job. The emotional plan says, "I will work whenever I have energy." The discipline plan says, "At 7 p.m., I sit at the desk." The minimum is 20 focused minutes. I mark the session on paper. If I miss one day, the next day begins with the smallest task, not with guilt. But 20 minutes is not enough, your impatient side says. The answer is immediate. 20 minutes is the floor, not the ceiling. The floor exists, so weakness cannot turn one bad day into a lost month. This is not about worshipping routine. This is about making progress less dependent on personality, weather, praise, and emotion. A machine is feared because it does not need to be persuaded. When people realize your work continues through boredom, silence, rejection, and low applause, they understand that waiting for you to quit is no longer a strategy. Drop this in the comments. My system is stronger than my mood. Number 3, starve temptation early. You are not disciplined because you can stare at temptation for 6 hours. You are disciplined when temptation is denied access before the fight begins. Machiavelli's documented argument in chapter 25 of The Prince is that fortune may strike like a flooding river, but people can build barriers and defenses while conditions are calm. The undisciplined person waits for the flood and then boasts about willpower. The strategic person changes the terrain. Frederick Douglass learned this under conditions far more severe than ordinary distraction. After Hugh Auld opposed his literacy education, Douglass carried a book while running errands, finished part of the errand quickly, and used the remaining time to learn from local white boys. He sometimes traded bread for lessons. He turned minutes slavery had not intended to give him into a system for literacy. Most people ask, how can I become strong enough to resist everything? The strategic person asks, how can I make the right action available and the wrong action inconvenient? Douglass carried the book. He created access to the behavior he wanted inside the narrow space he controlled. Modern self-control research makes the same distinction. Angela Duckworth, Tamar Gendler, and James Gross argued that changing a situation early can be more effective than wrestling with a fully developed temptation. The student who leaves the phone outside the library is not weaker than the student who keeps it on the table and suffers. The first is more strategic. Research on smartphones illustrates why environment matters, though the evidence is mixed. A widely cited 2017 experiment reported that the mere presence of one's phone could reduce available cognitive capacity. Later replications have not always found the same effect. The honest lesson is narrower. Objects tied to reward and social uncertainty can consume attention in ways people underestimate. Now, picture your evening. You sit down to write. The phone is face down beside the keyboard. You tell yourself, I will not touch it. 5 minutes later, you wonder whether someone replied. 10 minutes later, you check one notification. 20 minutes later, your attention belongs to everyone except you. The disciplined version is quieter. The phone charges in another room, the distracting sites are blocked. The document is already open. The first sentence is written before you stop the previous session, so the next entry point is obvious. Your old self says, shouldn't I be able to control myself with the phone nearby? Your strategic self answers, the objective is not to prove resistance. The objective is to produce the work. This is not about hiding from life. It is about refusing unnecessary battles. Generals do not prove courage by choosing the worst ground. Architects do not prove strength by removing supporting walls. Starve the impulse before it grows teeth. Put distance between you and what makes you small. Put the correct tool in the path of your next action. That is not weakness. That is dark intelligence applied ethically. You know the game your attention is playing, so you redesign the board. Number 4, train beyond applause. The work that changes your position is usually performed before anyone has a reason to respect it. Machiavelli wrote that command rests on the study of war, its rules and discipline. Read that, Beyond the Battlefield. Authority is built through repeated preparation for demands that have not yet arrived. A title cannot rescue an untrained person when the test becomes real. At Valley Forge in 1778, Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben brought uniformity to drills, maneuvers, camp organization, sanitation, and duties of rank. He trained a model company and spread standardized instruction through the army. Regulations developed from this work were published in 1779 and remained an American military standard into the War of 1812. The change appeared at the Battle of Monmouth in June 1778, where continental troops showed greater order under pressure. The lesson is not mythology about perfect soldiers. Disciplined performance was rehearsed through ordinary movements before cannon fire made those movements expensive. Most people practice what they already do well because competence feels good. The strategic person isolates weakness, accepts correction, repeats the uncomfortable movement, and stays long enough for embarrassment to become precision. K. Anders Ericsson and colleagues used the term deliberate practice for effortful activity designed to improve performance. It is not mindless repetition, it requires a defined skill, focused attention, feedback, correction, and recovery. Their 1993 work connected expert performance with prolonged, structured effort. Later scholarship debates how much practice explains across fields, so discipline is no guarantee of genius. Still, doing something for years is not the same as spending years correcting how you do it. Consider a manager who wants authority in meetings. Most people wait for the next meeting and hope confidence appears. The disciplined manager records a practice presentation, watches the first 2 minutes, notices filler words, rewrites the opening, rehearses objections, and asks a trusted colleague for one brutal correction. The dialogue changes from, "I hope they take me seriously," to, "I have rehearsed the moment where they usually interrupt me." When the interruption comes, the response is calm. "Let me finish the conclusion, then I will take the objection." No anger, no apology, no collapse. This is not about performing life like a machine. This is about respecting reality enough to prepare for it. Train the difficult movement, train the first hour, train the response to pressure, train the return after failure. Shut up and practice. Shut up and correct. Shut up and return. When your composure looks natural, people will call it talent. Let them. You will know it was built in rooms where nobody clapped. Drop this in the comments. I train where nobody is watching. Number 5, choose the slower victory. Weakness is often impatient. It wants relief now, recognition now, revenge now, proof now. Discipline is the power to refuse a small emotional victory that would destroy a larger strategic one. Machiavelli argued that fortune governs part of human affairs, but not all of them. The remaining space belongs to preparation, adaptation, and virtue. In other words, you cannot command every event. You can command whether urgency forces you into the wrong battle. In 217 BCE, after Hannibal had inflicted devastating defeats on Rome, Quintus Fabius Maximus was appointed dictator. He avoided the decisive confrontation Rome demanded, followed Hannibal, harassed foragers, protected his army, and tried to exhaust an invader far from home. His caution earned him the name Cunctator, the delayer, initially as criticism. His critics wanted a dramatic battle. When Rome returned to direct confrontation at Cannae in 216 BCE, the result was catastrophic. Fabius did not defeat Hannibal in one glorious scene, and ancient accounts carry political storytelling. His name survived because he understood that refusing the enemy's preferred tempo can be command. Most people react to the discomfort of waiting. The strategic person asks what the reaction would cost. Most people answer disrespect with a message. You answer it with evidence. Most people announce a plan because silence feels invisible. You let the plan mature where envy cannot touch it. Psychologically, immediate rewards are often overweighted as they approach. Behavioral researchers describe forms of this as present bias. The future consequence remains visible, but immediate relief becomes emotionally dominant. That is why the angry message feels urgent at midnight and foolish at breakfast. A disciplined delay creates distance between impulse and identity. It allows the nervous system to settle, gives new information time to appear, and returns control to the objective rather than the wound. Imagine a colleague publicly taking credit for your work. Your body wants immediate correction. That was my idea, and everyone here knows it. The strategic response is not passivity. You breathe, document the sequence, and say, I will send the project timeline after this meeting so the responsibilities and next steps are clear. Then you send the record to the relevant people. The weak reaction seeks emotional discharge. The disciplined action protects position, evidence, and future leverage. This is not about tolerating abuse. It is about choosing the time, form, and battlefield of your response. A boundary delivered 10 minutes later with evidence may be stronger than an explosion delivered 10 seconds later without control. They begin to fear your discipline when provocation stops producing access to you. They cannot rush you into self-destruction. They cannot use your pride as a handle. They cannot make your next move for you. Move slowly when speed belongs to the enemy. Delay the reply. Protect the objective. Let your silence gather facts. Then act once, clearly, and without emotional debris. Number 6. Shield the central objective. A person with 10 priorities has no priority. Fragmentation feels like ambition because you are always busy. In reality, it is often fear wearing a productive mask. Machiavelli observed that introducing a new order is among the most difficult and uncertain undertakings because the old order already has defenders, while the new one has only cautious supporters. Your central objective faces the same politics inside your life. Old routines are established institutions. Every competing goal offers a reason to preserve them. Ulysses S. Grant's Vicksburg campaign shows persistence without rigidity. Vicksburg controlled a critical stretch of the Mississippi River, and early approaches failed. In spring 1863, Grant crossed below the city, fought inland, defeated Confederate forces, and shifted to siege after assaults failed. Following 47 days of siege, Vicksburg surrendered on July 4, 1863. Grant did not repeat one failed move forever. He protected one objective while changing the route. That is discipline at a higher level. Rigidity protects a method. Strategy protects the mission. Most people change goals whenever a method becomes painful. The strategic person changes methods while keeping the goal visible. Most people confuse novelty with progress. You ask whether the new activity serves the central campaign or merely lets you escape the difficult part. Goal-shielding research describes how commitment to a focal goal can inhibit competing goals. Used carelessly, that mechanism can suppress real responsibilities. The disciplined application is narrower. Identify one primary objective for a defined block of time and protect it from trivial alternatives. Attention research adds another warning. Sophie Leroy's experiments on task switching found that part of a person's attention can remain stuck on the previous task, especially when it was unfinished. This attention residue reduces performance on the next demand. Every casual switch has a hidden tax. Suppose your central objective is finishing a professional certification. You sit down to study, then answer email, compare business ideas, watch a tutorial about a different skill, and reorganize your notes. 3 hours pass. You were active. The campaign did not move. The disciplined response is, for 60 minutes, the only victory is this module and 20 practice questions. A new idea goes on a capture page. A message waits. When the mind claims something else might be more important, you answer, "Not during this block." This is not about becoming unavailable to emergencies or people you are responsible for. It is about distinguishing a real emergency from the discomfort of sustained focus. Choose the campaign, define the block, close the borders, finish before switching. The outlier is not always the person with the most energy. Often it is the person who stops leaking energy into objectives that were never chosen. Drop this in the comments. One mission, no noise. Number 7, turn chaos into protocol. Discipline becomes most valuable when reality stops cooperating. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler should build resources in calm periods so they are available in adversity. Preparation is not pessimism. It is respect for the fact that pressure removes options. Ernest Shackleton's expedition became a survival crisis after Endurance was trapped in Weddell Sea ice in January 1915 and later crushed. 28 men camped on drifting ice, reached Elephant Island, and waited while Shackleton and a small party crossed roughly 800 miles of open ocean to seek help. All 28 survived. The story is often reduced to heroic personality. That misses the operational lesson. Survival depended on routines, role clarity, rationing, maintenance, watches, movement decisions, and the preservation of morale. In chaos, the group could not afford to renegotiate every essential behavior according to fear. Most people abandon structure when life becomes difficult. They sleep at random, eat at random, react at random, and then wonder why their judgment becomes unstable. The strategic person simplifies structure under pressure. Fewer priorities, clearer times, smaller actions, stronger recovery. Stress consumes cognitive resources. Under threat and uncertainty, working memory and flexible reasoning become harder to use, while sleep loss further damages attention and inhibitory control. You cannot always remove the crisis, but you can reduce how many choices it forces you to make. Create a minimum viable protocol for bad days. Wake within a defined window. Drink water. Move your body for 10 minutes. Complete the single action that protects your most important responsibility. Communicate what must be communicated. Prepare the next day before exhaustion makes the decision. Imagine that your business loses a major client. The undisciplined reaction is total diffusion. Refresh the bank account, complain to 5 people, redesign the brand, search for a new industry, and stay awake until 3 in the morning. The protocol says, first, calculate the real runway. Second, contact the 3 highest probability leads. Third, reduce 1 non-essential expense. Fourth, sleep before making irreversible decisions. Your frightened side says, this is too small. We need to do everything. Your strategic side answers, chaos wants everything at once because everything at once guarantees nothing is completed. This is not about denying emotion. Shackleton's men were not machines, and neither are you. It is about giving fear a container so it does not become the architect of every hour. When people see you maintain basic order while circumstances collapse, they stop reading calm as softness. They understand that your stability is not borrowed from favorable conditions. Your empire has emergency power. Do not wait for the storm to invent your character. Write the protocol while the sky is clear. Number 8, make consistency visible. Private discipline changes you. Visible consistency changes how the world calculates you. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be." He also insisted that people judge rulers heavily by outcomes and reputation. Applied ethically, the lesson is not to fake virtue. It is to understand that repeated behavior becomes public evidence. People cannot inspect your intentions, they update their expectations from what you repeatedly do. Theodore Roosevelt offers a useful example. As a child, he suffered severe asthma and remembered being sickly and delicate. Urged by his father to build his body, he adopted demanding physical training and later made strenuous activity part of his identity. Exercise did not magically erase a real respiratory condition. It prevented that condition from becoming the only definition of his capacity. Most people attempt transformation in secret, but advertise every intention. They announce the diet, the channel, the book, the business, the new identity. Then the announcement delivers a small social reward before the work has delivered evidence. The strategic person speaks less, records more, and lets consistency become the message. The Dunedin study followed roughly 1,000 people from childhood into adulthood. In a 2011 analysis led by Terry Moffat, childhood self-control predicted gradients in health, substance dependence, finances, and criminal offending at age 32, after accounting for intelligence and social class. This is not fixed destiny. It is evidence that self-regulation compounds into real consequences. Compounding is what observers eventually fear. One workout is invisible. 3 years of training changes the body. 1 focused hour is forgettable. 1,000 focused hours change capability. 1 kept boundary can be dismissed. A year of kept boundaries changes how people approach you. Picture a family member who is accustomed to interrupting your work with demands that are not emergencies. You used to complain, surrender, and resent them. Now you say, "I am unavailable from 7 to 9. Send me the details, and I will respond afterward." You have changed, they say, hoping the accusation restores the old arrangement. You answer, "Yes, I keep this time protected now." No defense, no biography, no anger. The next week, the boundary remains. The month after that, it remains. Eventually, the requests arrive outside the protected hours. Your consistency trained the environment. This is not about making people afraid of your aggression. It is about making them afraid to bet against your follow-through. They fear wasting tactics that used to work. They fear discovering that your silence contains a plan. They fear the distance growing between your old identity and your current evidence. Do not chase the appearance of power. Build the record that produces it. Do not perform discipline for 1 dramatic week. Become boringly exact for long enough that your results become difficult to explain away. Your attention is gold. Your word is law inside your own life. Your repetition is the architect. Let others call it obsession after they benefited from your inconsistency. Let them call it cold after they lost access to your chaos. Drop this in the comments. My consistency changes the calculation. Remember the 8 laws. Make your word final. Stop reopening decisions because discomfort requested another hearing. Build a machine, not a mood. Give the behavior a cue, a minimum, a record, and a recovery rule. Starve temptation early. Change the terrain before the impulse becomes a battle. Train beyond applause. Correct the weak movement in private until pressure can no longer expose it. Choose the slower victory. Refuse the reaction that feels powerful now, but makes you weaker tomorrow. Shield the central objective. Change the route when necessary, but do not abandon the campaign to escape difficulty. Turn chaos into protocol. When options collapse, let prepared actions carry you. Make consistency visible. Give the world enough evidence to update what it believes you are capable of doing. You are not the same person who started this video. Discipline is now government. It decides what receives your attention, protects the borders of your time, and moves your body before excuses become policy. The weak version of you is not defeated in one cinematic moment. It is starved through denied negotiations. Each quiet execution removes another vote from the identity that kept you small. They will notice. First, they laugh at the routine. Then they test the boundary. Then they wait for collapse. When it does not come, they call you extreme, distant, or lucky. Let them speak. Results are the language that survives interpretation. Real discipline is silent violence against weakness, not against people. It destroys the excuses, environments, impulses, and repeated betrayals that made your life easy to control. It is not cruelty, it is sovereignty. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I am governed from within. If this changed the way you see discipline, hit like, subscribe. We are just getting started. The next video goes deeper into the Machiavellian law of emotional control, how to become impossible to provoke without becoming passive or weak. Do not miss it.